So, ich begrüße Sie zum nächsten Art Talk heute auf der Art Düsseldorf. Herzlich willkommen. Wir sind sehr froh, dass wir heute Daisuke Miyatsu aus Tokio hier auf der Bühne haben, einen der größten Sammler aus Japan. Wir werden so ein bisschen Multitasking heute machen müssen, also Englisch, Deutsch, Japanisch. Wir gucken mal, wie wir so durchkommen. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Miyatsu. Thank you very much for being with us. You have one of the most important collections in Japan. Maybe you could give us a few insights so that we get an impression of your big collection, first of all. So you want to...
Okay, guten Tag everybody. I try to deliver my talk in English, but my English is not so good. So she's a great translator. So I talk about my collection and how to make a good collection, how to start a collection in Japanese. So
I think the English is fine, just when you talk in Japanese.
Okay. 最初にでは自己紹介をしたいと思います。私は大体コレクションする人っていうのはすごくその富裕な人が多いと思うんですけど、私は今55歳ですけども、30歳の時にコレクションを始めて今26年目になるんですけど、25年目ですね。私本当に普通のサラリーマンで、家がお金持ちなわけでも IPO でたくさんお金が入ってきたわけでも、ストックオプションでお金が入ってきたわけでもありません。
Genau. Herr Miyatsu hat als Angestellte, normale Angestellte bei einer Firma, bei einem Unternehmen, Sammlungen angefangen, als er dann 30 Jahre alt war. Er ist jetzt 55 Jahre alt. Als Sammler ist er jetzt 26 Jahre alt, quasi.
お金がなくてどうやってコレクションをスタートさせるか、どうやってコレクションを作るかっていうことなんですけども、一番大事なのは皆さんがいいと思ってるものはもう高いので、まだ皆さんがいいと気づかない時に安い金額で買うっていう、当たり前のことなんですけど、だけど私はアーティストから直接買うことや卒業展で買うことはありません。全部ギャラリーからしか買ってないです。
Die Kunstwerke, die von berühmten, renommierten Künstlern zu kaufen, sind sehr teuer. Die Kunstwerke sind schon bekannt und sehr teuer. Von daher, seine Methode ist, dass er dann die neue junge Künstler zu entdecken, junge Kunstwerke zu entdecken und dafür Geld investieren. Und normalerweise kauft er nicht direkt von Künstlern, sondern kauft er gerne immer über die Galerien.
When you started your collection in Japan, which is, I think you started in the 90s, right? You were one of the very few people who were collecting art and confronted yourself with contemporary art. And there was no tradition as in Europe, where you have a lot of contemporary art all over the place. How did you access the contemporary art scene when you first started as one of the very first in Japan, actually?
話す前にこれをちょっと出していいですか。9ページ。私が1994年に初めて買った作品は草間彌生さんの1952年のドローイングでした。
Sein erstes Kunstwerk ist von Kusama Yayoi Kusama eine der bekanntesten Künstlerinnen in Japan, ein Kunstwerk aus dem Jahr 1952.
But how did you actually access the art scene? Because obviously the system in Japan, especially at the time where you had no global market, was very different from here. How did you start to get into that?
私のやり方はすごくシンプルで、美術館に行って素晴らしい作品があると思えたら美術館に直接電話をしてどこのギャラリーに売っているか聞いてそのギャラリーに行って買うということから始めました。
Sein erster Schritt ist ziemlich simpel. Er hat dann einfach Museumsausstellungen besucht und dann die Kunstwerke, die ihm dann gefallen haben, danach hat er dann direkt beim Museum nachgefragt, wo die Kunstwerke vertreten sind. Und dann hat er dann die Galerien kontaktiert und angefragt, wie er dann erwerben kann.
And when you say that you started looking at exhibitions in museums first, was that mainly in Japan and Asia, or did you travel around the world to have access to different artistic positions at the time?
今世界中にアートフェアがあるんですけども、アートフェアとか展覧会を見るために行くのも重要なんですけど、コンテンポラリーアートの醍醐味はアーティストが、生きてることなので、そのアーティストと会って話をしてご飯を食べてスタジオに行くで買うっていうことが、買うのはギャラリーからですけども私にとって重要です。
Should we try in English? Because I think your English seems fairly
It's okay. It's okay.
We do it mixed media.
Mixed, yeah.
All right. So, but maybe you can answer this last question in German.
Die Ausstellung, die er dann besucht hat beim ersten Mal, das war in Japan und er hatte eine japanische Galerie besucht. Aber generell besucht er nicht unbedingt Museumsausstellungen oder Kunstmesse internationale Kunstmesse, nicht unbedingt so, er besucht nicht dafür ins Ausland.
So when we understand you correctly, you don't travel so much abroad, you're mainly focused on the Asian context, is that right? So obviously we have a very European view on the art, or say westernized view on the art often, which is very much discussed at the moment at the museums in the Western world, that a lot of collections are very much based on America and Europe. So what would you say, is there a specific cultural impact that you look in art when you start getting interested in a piece of art?
Okay, so now is the era of the SMS. The people exchange the message via iPhone, like WeChat, Line, something like that. But for me, it's very, very primitive way. But face-to-face communication is most important because the information is very fresh. There's some very important information. Not only for everybody, just only our circle of friends. I have many friends, of course, in Germany, in France, and also the Asian country, But when I met my friend, they are collector, artists, curators, and the art fair organizers, I exchange with them many information. So the tips. So this time, so that I went around the many galleries, but some of them, of course, I know, but not all, but some of them not didn't know much. But I found a very interesting one, so I asked them, and what kind of artist, something like that. And please show me the CV, and do you have the other available one? And ask, and get information. That is my way. So the face to face, asking the answer is a very basic for me, I think. Yeah.
And when you compare the situation when you started to now, how has the situation for contemporary art developed in your country? Because I guess when you started, it was more probably the access to contemporary art was not so available as it is today because everything has shifted through globalization. So how do you feel about the situation of contemporary art in Japan now?
Okay, so when I started 1994, the Japanese contemporary art is very small. Nobody knows. But this 10 years, some of them, so they focus on Japanese contemporary art too, because of some of big stars like Yayoi Kusama, Hiroshi Sugimoto, Takashi Murakami, Yoshitomo Nara, and so on. But so only in Japan, in Asian region, the changing the big wave is coming because the market of China really big, and also we call China, but not only mainland China, but also the Taiwan, Hong Kong, the overseas Chinese, that they can speak Mandarin and they exchange the information very much, and that they want to make the very big market and they push their artists to the global market. The influence is really big. So, Japan and China or Korea, this is the very East Asia. So I checked not only Japan, but also mainland China and also the Taiwan. Yeah, now the two galleries from Taiwan, Taipei, that in Taiwan it's very interesting, different from mainland China, because mainland China is similar to German outside, because the oral painters are very established and very nice. But in Taiwan, media art is very interesting because the first generation international artists, they are the photo and the new media. So now they are the professor of the art school, so they educate the younger generation. And Acer, Asus, BenQ, many digital devices companies in Taiwan and also Hong Kong. The younger artists, very easy to get the digital devices with a very cheap one. So their new media and the video are really interesting. So the same area, but mainland China, Taiwan looks similar but very different. And also that recently, so the Southeast Asia has a very big boom. Indonesia is like a center of the Southeast Asian contemporary art. Some of the very good artists are upcoming from there, and also everybody knows the next documenter, director from Indonesia. So this is a new shift to the new era. So Japanese art world, and the market, so that's still not so big. But some of the big characters, so enter this world, like Maezawa-san. So this time, so the Maezawa-san, everybody knows Maezawa-san, he got the most expensive Jean-Michel Basquiat. So he got a foundation. The director of the foundation was the Japanese young artist.
We will talk about this later. Yeah, but when you look at the power and the strength of the Asian market that has risen over the past, say, 10 years, if you come to Europe, is there a difference, in your opinion, how, say, the Europeans with all the tradition and everything look at art, and how, say, the new collectors who have actually started 10, 15 years ago. How would you describe the difference in how art is perceived?
Yeah,
if there is.
Okay, the first, Düsseldorf is a very special location because close to Cologne. Cologne is a very long history of a collector's city. And some of the very top class galleries had a long history. And so they very easily access to other country like Maastricht, only 1 hour from here by driving. So, and also the Düsseldorf is the economic center of the not only German but also the EU economics. So the people and the information they get together here in Düsseldorf. That is a very big chance to start their own collection or to make a good collection because of I checked the K21, the museum, from the establishment like media and the sound of the Carsten Nicolai to the very fresh one, the top class like Hitoshi Taira, the many interesting many. So if I am living in Düsseldorf, I check the K21 and the other museum and also the gallery. So that very enough. Who is the next? And then also that I think I was very surprised because Walter, he is the director of Düsseldorf, and then also the collectors that I met last night, that they are very fashionable. But I understand Düsseldorf has a many different kind of fashion. Fashion and art very close to each other. So I understand here is a very different from other cities. Very creative, not only economics, I think.
But if you compare it to the way when you speak to collectors in your country or you meet collectors from Taiwan or China, what would you say there is a difference how they collect to the collectors back in the Western world? If yes, how would you describe it?
Okay, in the Asian region, the many older generation focus on the Asians one, but the new generation they have a very wide range. So from Europe to US and then sometimes so they also the Middle East and the Africa too. So that is a very new idea. And but last night, so I met some collector, but the older generation collectors from Cologne, he collected, of course, the German artists, so mainly, and also the American and the other country in Europe. The younger one is a very wide range. Sometimes, so they include in the new media and the other kind, like installation. And some of the young collectors, they're very focused on the painting, and also the German one. But not only Jigmao Koke, Gerhard Richter, but also the Andre Butzer, two new generation too. That is a big different point. So that between the generation.
Because what often happens, I mean, you mentioned it before, when it comes to auctions, for example, a lot of there's a strong economical force coming from, say, China, for example, who buy, say, like a Basquiat for $50-60 million, and a lot of art has shifted towards the Asian market through that, because there is a lot of money. How do you see that situation, that sometimes you could get the impression that it's all about money?
Yeah, so, okay, the auction is very easy to understand because okay, I'm sorry, this is not a good word. Sometimes so they're very focusing on the blue tip artists. But the art fair and the galleries, they're bit different from such a kind of work. So some of the, how to explain, the wealthy people, the idea don't want to wait longer. I want to get now and now and now, pay much money. So this is the auction system. It's not bad, but okay. For example, Hitoshi Taira, so that it's very difficult to resell, but her work is really, really amazing, beyond the expectation, the far away from the all the artworks. So that is a very difficult point. So many Asian, so it's like a beginner compared to the European collector. So they don't want to wait for longer. So now I get a George Kondo, now I get something like that. But out of that different world, he is the connecting, just sort of connecting to the same artwork like an auction. But there are many different kind of art as well.
And when you go through, all the exhibitions that you see, when you get inspired by different exhibitions, museums, what is for you most important when you decide this is going to be a piece that I want to have in my collection?
Okay, so sometimes after checking the museum or foundation, so the painting is unique. I want to get it, but already sold out. It's impossible. But the video and the photo, so editions, that we still have a chance to get it. So this 15 years, I'm very focused on the video and the new media because of that I lost the chance, but still have a chance. That's very important for me. Yeah.
And are there certain themes or topics, something that really makes you decide this kind of media art piece is something that I really want to have? So, for example, the last piece that you bought, maybe you could explain to us what made you decide that this would be part of your collection? Or an example that kind of is specific.
Yes. Okay. Last week, before coming to Düsseldorf, I was in Shanghai about 1 week because there were two big art fairs. One is a West Bend Shanghai, other one is R21 in Shanghai. Two different type of big art fairs in Shanghai, and they are running the parallelly, the same duration. I checked every year from the first edition. I got a Chinese artist, new media one. His name is Chen Lan. Chen Lan is a very upcoming artist, but his style is very free, new media, like a light box, video, something like that. He got a very big award. So recently, I got his light box piece, so that from the art fair, I say, and also the very young Chinese female painter. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but very, very young. So I gotta have painting too. So the painting and the new media installation, the both from the different kind of art fair in Shanghai.
We had an artist, a collector's talk before, and it was interesting to hear what motivation a collector has to gain a piece of work. So it's provocation. Alain Servet said it has to be something that I dislike. So, it's making, it's complicated, so I need some kind of discussion with the artwork. What would you describe in yourself as what you look for? Is it a voice of the presence? Is it something that's aesthetically important to you? What arguments do you need for yourself to be convinced this is going to be my piece?
Now is a very difficult time because the technology is developed very speedy. So I don't know when, but people told 2045, artificial intelligence beyond the human. Now the very big shift, so and very speedy. Not only me, but almost people, so they cannot understand and they cannot see what is the future. And the meanwhile, we have many difficult problems because China and the U.S. fight very hard, and nationality is very common in every different area, and many refugees from the Africa and different country to our countries. So, what is what is the right direction? I have to do what will I have to do? So, very good contemporary art, not so explain much, but it's like a visual. But for me, it's like a hint, tips for get a different kind of point of view to the every kind of what's going on in our world. So that is a very big point. So the piece so that teach me the different kind of point of view or not. So that is like a motivation to correct our works more and more and more.
I mean, in Europe we have a strong tradition that contemporary art fights the system and challenges political systems. When you look as a Japanese collector to China, say, and we have the riots in Hong Kong, we have censorship in China, how would you describe the situation for artists in China, and are collectors in some ways, do they have difficulties to actually find artists who would act against the system because you live in a censored system?
Okay, so in German, so that you have a very long history against the system. So that, very famous example like Joseph Beuys, So I have some pieces of him, of course. So in China, some of the very good artists, that looks not against the system, looks not against the politics, but very sometimes so they hidden side, and they very not easy to understand, but so it's like a symbol of the good artist in China or not, I say. It's like a very not clear, but like a metaphor. So for collectors, now it's very difficult because so that in mainland China, so that they have to care the government, that they have to get a very subtle balance between politics, economic, and their own idea. So now it's very difficult because so honestly, some of them very want to support to Hong Kong, but it's not difficult to show their mind. So it's a very subtle balance. But the artists, so that good artists are very hidden their ideas. It's very normal, but very
right.
edgy,
So it's basically a language that maybe you can read, because you know the culture, and for us it would be probably much more difficult to actually see the kind of subtlety within the artwork, right? So, but when you see those artists, do you feel that, how would I describe it? Because obviously it's a very European view on that. Is there a chance for the arts, say, for example in China, to get freer in the future?
It's a very difficult question because for me, I am Asian. For me, the balance is most important, like yin and yang. So the idea of US, idea of mainland China, so I don't know which is good, which is best, but it's like a balance. So I think probably now China is not communism country. The politics and communism, but the economics is a super, like more than US. Yeah, so very hard to explain there, like a mixture.
And when you look at the intercultural possibility of arts, which we have nowadays through globalization, it's easier now to kind of see other works from other countries, and Europe is waking up and bringing in more cultural positions as it did, say, 20 years ago. How important is it for the artistic discourse to actually show Asian work in Europe and get into a dialogue?
Yeah, but German is one of the most important for people from out of German, because it's very difficult but open to the people outside German. Some of them very mixture, like the Korean artists, so they come to here, and it's like not Korean, not German, very mixed. So she is Ogasawa-san. She is a Japanese artist, but living in Hamburg. The hand painting is not Japanese, but not German. It's like very mixture in a good way. So I think so the interculture, multiculturalism is very important to produce the different kind of idea, the new point of view. So that is very important. But all of them so they're successful. Some of them only successful. All of them not successful. But some of them sometimes really new or really great for us, I think.
I mean, you've been collecting for a long time now, so your expertise obviously has risen over the many years. How have you changed through collecting art?
It's very difficult. So the art is changing day by day. The new younger generation, so they emerging day by day. So if I don't change, but art will change every day, updated. So I am very free from the what is a grade or who is established, how much is the market price, so that I can take the new one. The new one changed me, I think. Yeah.
And can you describe how it changed you? Does it make you more open, more curious, more vivid? What is it? How would you say?
Without prejudice. Yeah, very fresh. Accept everything first time. So unseen. That is a shortcut to get a new, I think. Yeah. So first time to come to Düsseldorf, but I didn't know Düsseldorf is such a kind of fashionable city. The fashion is France. It's like a prejudice. But Düsseldorf. Yeah. Some of very nice boutiques. Yeah, I think.
And when you go to an art fair like in Düsseldorf now, do you see pieces that surprise you?
And I enjoyed the art Düsseldorf this time. But last night I met Robert. He is one of the very important characters, older generation, and a board member of K21. So living in Cologne. He told me, until when are you staying here? Sorry, so that I will read tomorrow. But okay, so you will be back and show my collection to you. And then spring, so the art Cologne will be, my city, he told. So Düsseldorf art Cologne, they're very close but they're different. So then, I will be back at Düsseldorf, and also that I will be back to art Cologne, I think,
And when you look at your collection by now, is there a kind of equal mixture between different cultures, or is there a focus on a certain artist or a certain country maybe, or?
Focusing on the artworks. But as I told, contemporary art, so what's contemporary art? The artist is still living in the same age. So I want to talk with them. I want to have a lunch or dinner with them. So I want to understand them deeply. Yeah, that is my important point. Yeah, better very focusing on idea and the personality and the way of idea of the artist and also the artwork size.
I mean, you seem to travel a lot, but obviously Japan is quite far away from Europe and the other way around as well. We were talking about this earlier, whether collectors get interested in artworks via Instagram, for example, through the digital tools. Is that something that is playing an important role for yourself, so that you see pieces that you wouldn't be able to see without traveling?
Yeah, as I told, face-to-face communication is the most important for me. But I use the Instagram, WeChat, Line, WhatsApp, of course. They not only exchange the information, I check the images of artwork. I decided immediately. So face-to-face communication very important. But of course, I use the convenient way to make for making my collection. So it's like a balance. So, yeah.
And when you look at the situation in Japan nowadays, is there a growing group of collectors? Are you discussing your collections with each other? How is the public interest in contemporary art now in Japan?
In Japan now, so the people more focus on the contemporary art than before, because some of the very famous entrepreneurs get a very expensive art pieces. So that is like a trigger to art is very expensive, and the art is like a kind of the
status.
Yeah, and also like a good investment. And they make their life very wonderful. So many functions.
Which means, did I understand you correctly, that the commercial side is more important than, say, the artistic side of it, the intellectual side?
For me, artistic side, but it's very important the market and like economics, because of the getting the money or invest good, the more people focus on art. It's like starting the market, so the bigger and the bigger and the bigger. So I have more chances to see the good art, because so that they invite someone from over the world. Yeah. So I will go many cities, so that like exchange. So they going like a promote it. Yeah.
But what would you say is, isn't this a problem that if collectors look at art as an investment rather than a challenge?
Sorry.
If collectors, how you describe them, see art as an investment rather than an intellectual or emotional challenge, is that a problem maybe? Or how do you look at that?
Yeah. For me, so I'm very focused on the artworks, not without the investment. But it's very difficult, the balance, invest and what you want to buy. So we don't have the correct answer, but one way what did the gallery to work with them, because the gallery business is a very tough, and I trust some of them because they have a very good balance, so the financial situation and the artistic situation. We collectors, so focus on the artificial over investment, so only, but almost of galleries have a good balance. So teach many things. I got many things from them. Yeah.
So, ich möchte nochmal ins Publikum öffnen, falls Sie Fragen noch haben an Herrn Miyatsu. Wäre jetzt die Möglichkeit? Okay. Dann würde ich, then I would ask you a final question for today. When you think about the, say, next 10, 20 years, and maybe, and look at the Asian market now, say the art market, which you described as some kind of art as an investment, do you think that could shift, that people are becoming more aware of the cultural impact of art than they did maybe when they started?
Yeah. As I told, so every lecture and the talks, going to the art fair is to open the new world for beginner and wanna be a collector. Because if we check all the galleries, that we need 1 year, but art fair from the gallery from all over the world, so only 1 day or 2 days that we can check all. So it's very important. Seeing many artworks. So what is a culture? What is art? That big impact for their art life. So art fair is very easy to access, and we can buy it if we won't get. So this is a very good game. What is culture? What is art? Yeah, I said, yeah.
And a final question, do we have a chance to see some of your collection in Europe? Can we see your collection in Europe maybe at some point?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I hope, yeah.
Well, we hope so too. Mr. Miyatsu, thank you very much for having joined us. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Wir bleiben noch ein bisschen in Japan um 15 Uhr. Wenn Sie Interesse haben, bleiben Sie bitte. Vielen Dank.